House of Secrets 92, first appearance of Swamp Thing. Here it is. Hello everybody, welcome back to the House of Secrets. Just kidding, this is the West Coast Davengers, and I've got a treat for you today. I cracked out my House of Secrets 92, the first appearance of the Swamp Thing by Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson, and we're going to flip through it. I'm going to talk about how much I love this comic, how much I love Bernie Wrightson, and how much I love you. But before we get started, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, comment down below, tell me how you shouldn't treat your comics that way. They're mine, not yours. And I have a podcast called Direct Edition. You can find that down below, but I have a central hub for all of this stuff. That is westcoastavengers.com. So click on over, bookmark it, save it, all notifications, do all the things. And now I bring you the House of Secrets. Bernie Wrightson. One of the greatest artists to ever grace comics, certainly one of the greatest horror artists to ever grace comics, and the co-creator, along with Len Wein, of Swamp Thing. A 10-issue run on Swamp Thing leaves a legendary mark on comics and pop culture forever. 10 straight issues of Bernie Wrightson art and Len Wein writing, but before Bernie was doing Swamp Thing, and before Len Wein was doing Swamp Thing, there was House of Secrets 92. I think this is one of the greatest covers of all time, one of the most iconic covers of all time. One of the trivia questions that you often hear, one of the pieces of trivia you often hear about this cover is, Louise Simonson, who was formerly married to Jeff Jones. So she was Louise Jones at the time. She was the model for the cover and the character, and I think that Michael Kaluta was the actual model also for one of the characters in this, who was part of the studio with Bernie and Barry Windsor Smith and Jeff Jones. This book I recently cracked out of a CGC slab, as you can see in the video, and I've always wanted it. And technically, I quit collecting comics after I got this. Like, I no longer need to own any other big comics. I still want a Hulk 181. What else do you want to sell this issue? You have a very beautiful woman brushing her hair, and she notices in the background, coming through the window in the full moon light, full moon zine, is Swampy. So let's crack it open. There's an introduction in here with Bernie Wrightson art, Cain and Abel, who host House of Secrets, House of Mystery, June, July 1971, but this piece was done in 1970. And we jump right into Swamp Thing. I mean, the trade dress is very similar to what the trade dress would become from Swamp Thing, not super different. The coloring in this is a little it's a little dull, and I kind of like it because you've got cold outdoor swamp, and once we get inside it warms up a little bit by the fireplace. But Bernie doing all the artwork here and Len doing the writing. Len wrote this story after having the idea on a subway ride to DC offices, and he was at a party at Marv Wolfman's house, I guess later that week, and he was talking to Bernie, who just ended his relationship with his current girlfriend, and he was feeling down in the dumps, and Len told him about this story, and I think Bernie was really into it right away, and so he jumped on it. It's a very somber story. We follow the swamp creature, and then we meet Linda Olson, who was married to Alec Olson. It's your kind of, vignette, Tales from the Crypt type of, 8-page story where she's married to Alex's, her dead husband's best friend. 6 months after he dies, and they kind of go through a little bit of that and the background of how he died in an explosion in a lab because he's a scientist. So they use this story as the template for the ongoing Swamp Thing story, and so you get, when you go and jump into Swamp Thing #1, and for me, I read Swamp Thing in trade, and the trade has the House of Secrets 92 starting off, and you can see it was colored by Tatiana Wood, and she did a great job, especially for the time. But you can see how different these two really are, and I'm not going to do a comparison. I just wanted to flip through the original. Pretty cool ad there, little Vampirella action, Frankenstein, Bernie Wrightson's favorite. But this is early Bernie, but he's you can't mistake him for somebody else. I mean, very influenced by Ghastly Graham Engels and Frank Frazetta, but he was kind of his own at this point. And then once we get into the regular Swamp Thing series, he really comes into his own. But we get a little bit of the story, and then the thoughts, and you get Damien's thoughts here for this entire page, which is a very cool page. It's it's not just it's not the panels are different shapes. So Bernie's panel layout was great, especially on this. It's almost like a splash page, but it's got multiple panels. But we get his head, like a headshot with each kind of thought narration, and we find out that he actually murdered Alex because he's always been in love with Linda, and he made it look like an accident, and he buried him in the swamp. The chemicals being buried in the swamp, that turns Alex into Swamp Thing. And she's feeling the chill, and so she wants to go to bed. We get Bernie's hair, the hair that Bernie did, the lines, you can see the hatching here for the rain. They're very unique to him. He came into his own once he kind of adopted his style, which was a mix of his influences. And so we get Damien basically saying, he says, it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time before she realizes that I killed Alex, and that will mean my end. However much I care for Linda, my own neck comes first. Linda must die. They are newly married. He's already thinking that she's going to figure out that he killed Alex, and so he's already planning to kill her. This man sucks. So she's brushing her hair, and we get the hair brushing shot where you get it on the cover, and Swamp Thing's watching from the window here. We've barely even seen Swamp Thing that much, and I just love the way that he draws the reflection in Swamp Thing's eye. It's like a brilliant panel right here, and this is another brilliant panel too, because he's about to inject her with syringe, and if you look in the background, you get what looks like Snuffleupagus staring in the window. So it's the original design of Swamp Thing. He's more shaggy. It's almost like he's got a mustache. Whereas a couple years later, this is the more sleek, muscular, heroic kind of Swamp Thing that we get, from the main series. He crashes through, narrates. So we Swamp Thing is a sentient being. He has thoughts. He's thinking as Alex would think, but he can't speak. But we're getting the narration as he murders, or as he kills Damien and saves Linda. And then our last page here, she screams and he can't speak. He's got no mouth, or he's got no vocal cords. I love this piece right here of her kind of crosshatched and grayed out, and then he just walks away, and you get this last very much horror romance piece written by Len Wein, as Swamp Thing says, "Only the swamp is kind to me now. It is only the swamp that cares. I look down at my wrist, at the barren place where once there was a golden bracelet, and I wonder where it is. If tears could come, they would." Short story, but sweet, and obviously super important to comics and super important to the career of both Len Wein and to Bernie Wrightson, because Len Wein would go on to do great things, and most notably in the superhero genre, he co-creates Wolverine with John Romita as well as Herb Trimpe, not Roy Thomas. And Bernie Wrightson goes on to make a career in comics of being Mr. Horror, but also his opus being Frankenstein. And then he goes into Hollywood for years. He helps design such movies as Ghostbusters. So this is where it starts in 1971, and we are so much better for it. And I'm so glad that I have this book, and I know a lot of you are screaming, why is he flipping through this book? But you know what? Let me tell you something about comics. They're made to be read. I don't think there's any other Bernie Wrightson art in here, but I'm going to just look through it real quick. Little chamber paper on the slab. No, it looks like... Wait. That looks like Bernie, but I don't know if it is. Anyway. House of Secrets 92. The beginning of the Swamp Thing. Bernie Wrightson, Len Wein. Just so glad that I own this. Glad that I actually now have every Swamp Thing book ever penciled by Bernie Wrightson. So that'll be it for this video, and thank you for watching. Shout out to my homeboy Daryl, because you know what he says at the end of all of his videos? Read your comics. Thanks for watching the video. I had a blast flipping through that. I'm really stoked that I have that book, and you know what? I can always regrade it if I feel like it. But I wanted that book that is literally my Grail book for now, until I have another. But thank you for watching this great episode. It was great, wasn't it? Don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe, hit the bell to be notified, because every 2 weeks I do West Coast Wednesday, my live sale where I sell comic books right here on this wall. Jar Jar, you are not for sale. Anyway, check out the podcast, and I'll see you next week on the Swamp Guy.
That was a great video, wasn't it?